This is from the website for Helen Caldicott, helencaldicott.com. It's a letter to the United Nations, dated September 13th, 2013. 17 international scientists and experts have written to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urging international action on Fukushima crisis. We write to you in urgency. The situation around the world at radioactively contaminated sites is not good, and it is clear that the situation at the Fukushima Daiichi reactor site is progressively deteriorating and not stabilizing. Here is the letter, September 13, 2013, to Honorable Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations. Dear Secretary, we write to you in urgency. The situation around the world at radioactively contaminated sites is not good, and it is clear that the situation at Fukushima site is progressively deteriorating, not stabilizing. We write because of your personal interest in a sustainable future, but also because you are the executive for global organizations charged with protection of the public's health, public safety, and the common good when it comes to radioactivity, radiation, and nuclear technology. Together, we call upon you to act immediately to 1. Prevail upon international organizations in Japan to replace TEPCO with a worldwide engineering group to take charge of the Fukushima disaster. 2. Appoint a group of experts independent from either TEPCO or IAEA to advise the new engineering group to establish a risk-informed stabilization, containment, and remediation plan for Fukushima. 3. Create a well-funded oversight panel of local citizen and local elected officials to ensure transparency and accountability of both of the above groups, as well as to facilitate well-informed self-determination and further recovery of the impacted populations. 4. Call upon the Japanese government to admit financial costs in excess of $500 billion US. And there's a link to Arnold Gunnarsson article on that. Number 5, call upon the Japanese government to assure adequate funding for decontamination of the prefecture and site. 6, call upon the Japanese government to cease the massive incineration program underway in Japan, which carts and burns rubble from the earthquake and tsunami, much of it toxic and some of it radioactive, in municipal incinerators. In addition to the action plan outlined above, we have broader concerns about radiological accounting and regulation that United Nations agencies such as the World Health Organization, International Atomic Energy Agency, and United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation have already engaged in. With regard to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, other UN agencies like the High Commission on Human Rights have recognized how this accounting is not serving humanity. Number 7, any projection of total cancers or deaths from the Fukushima disaster is premature, and any previous publications need to be viewed as speculative at best. It is clear now that the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster is far from over, and there can be no credible estimate of total environmental or human health impacts because the radiological release has not ceased, and the outcomes from exposing large populations to low doses over long time frames is unclear. A final estimation of the radiological release from the Fukushima Daiichi site of necessity lies in the future, perhaps the distant future. Therefore, it remains of utmost importance to monitor radioactivity and provide and increase protective measures to individuals and communities. When future updates to such studies are done, it must be incumbent upon the researchers to revise previous findings, not merely extend them, since it is known that key data from the past were not included, such as the World Health Organization admitting the radiation exposure to members of the public prior to being evacuated the first 4 days of the disaster. In addition, Japanese physicians and scientists in Japan must be allowed and supported to treat and report Fukushima-related health consequences. Nuclear calamities to date result in institutional pressure to underreport and even distort patient health data and other evidence. Link. Such institutional pressure is now contributing to a downplaying of the true impact of the Fukushima accident. Further, slavish reliance on past exposure assumptions is not advisable, not only because these assumptions could have been subject to this type of pressure, but also because every nuclear catastrophe exposure is different, according to the UN Special Rapporteur on Health, who references applicable research in his report. Quote, through experience from the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl accidents provide Though experiences from the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl accidents provide invaluable guidance, a narrow appreciation of the accidents would not provide proper guidance. Number 8. A new formulation of the radiological risk coefficient assigned to radiation exposure is needed, as well as a rigorous discussion of the option for more than one such coefficient. Unfortunately, outdated assumptions are still being applied to what is happening to the people in Japan and others being exposed to radioactivity from Fukushima and elsewhere. More accurate understanding of the impact of ionizing radiation from both internalized radionuclides and also across the life cycle has not yet been incorporated into risk assessments. Old, inaccurate assumptions do not account for disproportionate harm to females in general and young children in particular. Official estimates are beginning to acknowledge this reality. And there's a link. However, this impact is not yet incorporated in the regulation of radiation exposure worldwide. In addition, it is no longer valid to omit the impact of internal exposure. Risk estimates can no longer assume different types of radiation outside the body have equivalent health impact once inside the body. And a reference to Yablokov, 2013. Number 9. The global organizations charged with radiological analysis and regulation should be generating a real base of monitoring data from Fukushima. Contamination levels in both humans and the environment need to be woven into any health assessments. Reliance on dose reconstruction alone is insufficient, and collection of biological data will help researchers observe, not just predict, health outcomes. It is incumbent upon these global organizations, given the amount of information now known about disproportionate impacts from internal exposure and the disproportionate harm across the life cycle, human and otherwise, to collect data and calculate exposures directly, not from extrapolations mired in outdated and incorrect assumptions. The UN Special Rapporteur supports collection of biological data to assess internal exposure. Quote, refrain from restricting examination for internal exposure to whole body counters and provide it to all affected population, including residents, evacuees, and to persons outside Fukushima Prefecture. Number 10. In general, public health concerns need to drive public spending and health assessments. Principles of biology need to drive health research, not scientific investigation for science's sake. People need proper medical treatment, not data mining. Japanese people, especially parents, should be told the truth about the medical effects of radiation exposure. The Japanese people should have full and open access to the tests that are being performed on them to detect health abnormalities, such as thyroid cancer. All investigations into health abnormalities should include all cancers and other diseases related to radiation exposure. The world must not recommit the post-war crimes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the radiation victims known as hibakusha were only studied by the West rather than helped to heal. Number 11. Where biological mechanisms or results are unclear, precautions should be used not be superseded by principles of physics alone, because physics is only one of the forces acting to impact health. Research findings negative health impacts. Research finding negative health impacts of low doses should be accounted for, not disregarded. The UN Special Rapporteur, after reviewing such research, recognizes this. Quote, disregarding these findings diminishes the understanding of and increases vulnerability to health effects of long-term exposure to low-dose radiation. Number 12. Those who are displaced from their homes due to radioactivity need to have a good option regarding how and where to live, that are respectful to their culture and traditions. Consequently, the Special Rapporteur's report says any relief package should include costs of reconstruction and restoration of lives. This starts by providing them information about radiation in the context of other determinants to health, and this information should not be in the control of parties with financial interests in the nuclear industry. Number 13, the Fukushima disaster has inflicted suffering from family, social, and economic disruption and loss of cultural traditions, including food sources and family shrines. These losses are causing visible impacts on the mental and physical health of children, parents, grandparents, and whole communities. While it is radioactivity that will prevent their return to that life, there are many dimensions in which harm has been done. Those responsible for constructing and operating the reactors and accumulating irradiated fuel should be accountable to the people impacted. Continuing, the Special Rapporteur's report says legal structures should ensure that TEPCO and other third parties are held accountable for the nuclear accident and that their liability to pay compensation or reconstruction efforts is not shifted to taxpayers. Number 14, the uranium that was in the reactors at Fukushima Daiichi originated from Aboriginal lands in Australia, where the traditional people opposed the uranium ever being removed from the ground. It is time for the decision structure of our United Nations to honor and include the wisdom of those who truly, if heard, could have prevented this disaster. Number 15, the Memorandum of Understanding between the World Health Organization and the International Atomic Energy Agency should be dissolved permanently. The charge of the IAEA is to spread peaceful uses of nuclear technology. This official mandate prevents IAEA from being independent assessors of health impacts of the same technology. Secretary, it is your job to ensure that these reasonable concerns are addressed by action. Thank you, Helen Caldicott, MD, founding president of Physicians for Social Responsibilities. Alexei Yablokov, Dr. Biology Chair, Program for Nuclear and Radiation Safety, International Socio-Ecological Union, Moscow. Yuri Sherbak, Scherbak, Ambassador of Ukraine, member of the World Academy of Art and Science, author of Chernobyl, a documentary story, and report on Fukushima. Dr. Sebastian Flugbiel, President, German Society of Radiation Protection. Arnie Gunderson, Chief Engineer, Fairwinds, Burlington, Vermont. S. David Freeman, Consultant, formerly Chairman, Tennessee Valley Authority, and General Manager, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, New York Power Authority, and Sacramento Municipal Utility District. Steve Wing, Ph.D., Department of Epidemiology, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Stephen Starr, Senior Scientist, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Dr. Natalia Mironova, President of the Movement for Nuclear Safety. Natalia Prebrush-Henskaya, Doctor, Ph.D., Biology, Chair, the Save Children of Ukraine from Chernobyl Catastrophe Charitable Fund, member of the Public Council of the Ministry of Health, Ukraine, and Peace Ambassador. Benjamin K. Sovakul, Ph.D., Professor of Business and Social Sciences, Director of the Center of Energy Technology, Denmark. Jeffrey Patterson, Professor Emeritus, UW School of Medicine and Public Health, President, Physicians of Social Responsibility. Alfred C. Meyer, Board Member, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Dr. Alfred Korblein, Senior Scientist in Germany. Lynn Howard Earle, EHRLE, Chair, International Science Oversight Board. And Wolfgang Kohnlein, Koehnlein, retired, University of Munster. Those are the signatories. And I will make a meta link for this. The Fukushima letter. Fukushima letter, no spaces, .nodes.org.